Under the cool autumn skies of Busan, two of the world's most powerful leaders faced each other once again. For months, markets, diplomats, and industries had been waiting for this moment, a meeting between US President Donald J. Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping to decide whether the world's largest economies would continue their economic standoff or finally find common ground. The result? A one-year trade truce, described by both sides as a reset, but one whose meaning and longevity remain deeply uncertain. China's Ministry of Commerce quickly took center stage in shaping how the world understood that agreement. This meeting came after months of renewed economic friction. President Trump's second term had brought back aggressive tariffs, some exceeding 57% on Chinese imports, citing unfair trade practices and what he called predatory economic behavior. In retaliation, Beijing tightened export controls on rare earth minerals, the vital ingredients for electric vehicles, smartphones, and advanced weaponry, a reminder of China's dominance in global supply chains. By late October 2025, tensions were near breaking point. Analysts feared a phase 2 trade war that could disrupt everything from American soybean farms to global semiconductor production. The APEC 2025 summit in Busan, South Korea, was therefore more than a diplomatic gathering. It was the last chance to stop an economic slide that threatened to reverberate worldwide. And when Trump and Xi finally met on the 30th of October 2025, it was their first face-to-face encounter in nearly 3 years. What followed was described by Trump as an amazing meeting, one he rated 12 out of 10. The Chinese side, however, chose a more measured tone. They should think big and recognize the long-term benefits of cooperation, the official readout stated. Behind the smiles and handshakes were concrete, if temporary, steps. According to official statements and Reuters reporting, the two sides agreed to a 12-month trade truce that includes a tariff reduction by Washington from roughly 57% to 47% on selected Chinese goods, a one-year suspension of China's export restrictions on rare earth minerals, easing supply pressure for Western industries, a Chinese commitment to purchase 12 million metric tons of US soybeans by January 2026, and a total of 25 million tons annually for the next 3 years, a key demand from American farmers. The US agreed to pause expansion of its entity list, which restricted Chinese firms from purchasing American technology components. Both nations also reaffirmed that economic engagement should serve as the anchor of bilateral relations, not a point of friction. It was a tone of cautious optimism designed to project cooperation while avoiding the language of concession. Within hours of the Busan meeting, China's Ministry of Commerce, known as MOFCOM, held an official press conference in Beijing. Its spokesperson emphasized that both countries had reached consensus on solving various issues. The ministry underscored that the two negotiating teams would work out and finalize the follow-up steps to ensure that the common understandings are effectively upheld and implemented. This phrasing was deliberate. Beijing wanted to project not mere compliance, but co-ownership of the deal. It linked the truce to China's broader policy of reform and opening up, describing trade as a bridge of mutual benefit rather than a battlefield of mutual suspicion. For China's leadership, that message served multiple audiences, international markets, domestic industries, and political allies. It signaled continuity with Xi Jinping's long-standing rhetoric of win-win cooperation, while implicitly warning Washington that implementation must be reciprocal. The ministry's statement quickly steadied regional markets. The Shanghai Composite Index rose 2.3%, while major exporters in South Korea and Japan reported moderate rebounds. Yet beneath the calm surface, questions remained. Was this truly a de-escalation or merely a timeout in an enduring rivalry? For now, the Busan truce has bought time for markets, for governments, and for global supply chains. American farmers stand to regain billions in lost soybean exports. Manufacturers dependent on Chinese inputs may avoid cost shocks. In China, exporters enjoy a reprieve from steep US tariffs, giving breathing space to a slowing economy. The Council on Foreign Relations described it as a one-year truce, bringing temporary relief to businesses and consumers, but the underlying rifts remain largely untouched. Washington continues to accuse Beijing of forced technology transfers, state subsidies, and intellectual property violations. Beijing, in turn, criticizes what it calls economic containment and politicized tariffs. Experts from the Atlantic Council and Brookings warn that the truce may freeze tensions, not resolve them. One Brookings analyst observed, remarkably little was advanced in terms of US objectives. The deal is more ceasefire than peace treaty. Meanwhile, the Chinese government has seized the narrative advantage, highlighting its commitment to openness and stability as the responsible actor amid Western unpredictability. By portraying itself as the adult in the room, Beijing aims to reassure foreign investors while defending its global trade leadership. Beyond Washington and Beijing, the trade truce has broad consequences. For Europe, it offers a temporary reprieve from supply chain disruption, particularly in rare earth-dependent industries like electric vehicles and wind turbines. For ASEAN nations, the stability may help sustain their role as intermediary hubs between US and Chinese manufacturing. But for Japan and South Korea, both major US allies, the pause poses a dilemma, balancing economic dependency on China with strategic alignment to Washington. Economist Liu He, China's former vice premier, once described trade stability as the oxygen of modern diplomacy. The Busan truce, then, is a momentary deep breath, but the air remains thin. Domestically, both leaders emerge with short-term victories. For Donald Trump, the truce calms markets and reassures American farmers ahead of mid-term economic reviews. He can claim success in forcing China back to the table. For Xi Jinping, it projects steadiness and diplomatic control during a period of economic slowdown, reinforcing his image as a statesman able to diffuse confrontation. Yet both also face internal pressures. Trump's critics argue the tariff rollback concedes leverage. Xi's economists warn that too much dependence on US demand undermines China's self-reliance strategy, known as dual circulation. Strategically, the meeting doesn't alter the fundamental technology rivalry that underpins the modern Cold War, from AI chips to semiconductors, quantum computing, and data sovereignty. The Busan handshake is not the end, it's the beginning of a test. According to China's official foreign ministry readout, President Xi has invited President Trump to visit China early next year, a symbolic gesture ahead of APEC 2026 to be hosted in Shenzhen. That visit could determine whether this truce becomes the foundation for a lasting economic partnership or simply a prelude to renewed confrontation. For businesses and policymakers alike, the next 12 months will reveal whether two rival superpowers can transform competition into coexistence, or whether old patterns of distrust will once again define global trade. In Busan, a handshake may have halted a trade war, but only time and the choices of Washington and Beijing will decide if it marks peace or merely a pause.